Hi, everyone, and welcome to the January Mentor Zoom. Happy New Year. We embark on a new year, 2026. Here is the attendance link. I'm dropping the attendance link into the chat. If you are watching this recording, know that the attendance link is on the email that you found the recording on. So just go back to that email, click into the attendance link, and record that you watched the video. You probably are already familiar with this cycle, but I wanted to talk how this cycle pertains to mentoring or instructional coaching. Remember that mentoring ends. Mentoring is all about supporting a new teacher as he or she builds their practice, builds their pedagogy, learns how to be a teacher. Instructional coaching never ends and can occur with any teacher at any point in their career. Instructional coaching is centered around a goal and, more appropriately, a learning goal for students. The cycle begins by meeting. The mentor or coach vets out what the teacher wants to shine the spotlight on and what kind of data should be collected during the visit. The visit happens. The coach takes the data for the sole purpose of sharing with the teacher. Last, the post-visit meeting is an opportunity to analyze the data, reflect, talk about what strategies might affect the goal, and go from there. Maybe the cycle goes on. Maybe that's the end of the cycle. If you decide to move forward with your mentee next year during their second year in the profession, you'll go through this process once a quarter. The second mentoring year moves from the focus of induction, how do we do things in the KPBSD, how do you do your job as a teacher, to reflection of instructional strategies using some kind of data. So that's just a preview for next year, if you decide to move forward with your mentee into the second year. Okay, here's the January calendar. The first week, January 12th, is all about starting afresh in a new year, recalibrating. The week of January 19th, you'll talk with your mentee about the classroom visits. And I'll talk more about those classroom visits as we move through the slide deck. And then, as always, the last week is debriefing the reading. Talking of reading, the January reading for the first days of school is pages 2 through 39. And for SPED, it's chapter 6. Now, as a reminder, if you are working with a SPED teacher, the chapter 5 was assigned for December, and we did not go over that December reading. So if you're a SPED teacher, know that the big ideas will be in the 4 squares for January 26th. So both chapter 5 and chapter 6 big ideas will be there for you to debrief with your mentee. Okay, just like you're doing with students, we're going to do a mentor recalibration. What you're looking at in front of you are the parameters around being a mentor, and everybody knows this. Just as a refresher to you, I know that everybody has built a professional relationship with your first year teacher. I know that all of you are meeting with your mentee 1 hour a week. You're completing your weekly 4 squares, as well as participating in the Mentor Zoom 1 hour a month. If you're watching the recording or if you're attending the live Zoom, you are meeting that training piece once a month. Not only that, but I do ask that you implement the topics and discussions on the mentor calendar as they pertain to your mentee's role. Not all of these topics are appropriate for the assignment of your mentee. So know that there's some discretion there. You're going to implement the topics and discussions as applicable to the assignment of your mentee. And last but not least, to read the first days of school or the 10 critical components. So that's just a little recalibration for mentors. talking about recalibration, the first week of January 12th is all about talking with your mentee about how to begin that new semester. 2 weeks away is a long time. For high school mentees, they might be starting a new semester with different groups of students. For elementary, you're coming back after a period of time. So this conversation should be all about getting back into the swing of school and reflecting on how things can improve or change from last semester. Mentees shouldn't be surprised if students forgot everything. It's just the nature of children. They forget all the procedures from the previous month when they come back after the winter break. It's just, and I always like to tell new to profession teachers that it's not the mentee. It's just the nature of children. They forget everything you taught them about procedures. So just know that it is going to be a process where mentees, as well as all teachers in the district, are going to need to reteach procedures and talk about the routines that they expect from students. And as a matter of fact, with that said, it's a good time to reset all of those. Remember that we talked about procedural drift last month. Your mentee, as well as yourself, might have seen that procedural drift occur when students came back. So it's a good opportunity to reset, start afresh. It's a new semester, it's a new year, and you get to do a redo for the new year. Okay. That's the week of January 12th. I wanted to talk a little bit about ESY for SPED mentees. Now is a good time to talk with your mentee about what extended school year or ESY is and what it means to qualify for ESY. And what you're looking at are a couple of definitions, and I'm just going to kind of go through each one of these definitions because there's a high likelihood that your mentee isn't familiar with these. So now's a great time to start talking about, put these 4 definitions, I'm going to go over them in just a second, put them on the radar of your mentee if you're working with a SPED teacher. Emerging skills is learning that must occur without delay in order for them to continue moving forward. It's new learning that must continue in order to move forward or they'll lose it. Regression can occur as a result of some kind of interruption like winter break, so forth, while recoupment is the amount of time for regression of skills to recover from the loss. How long is it taking for them to recover from those skills? So you want your mentee to think about regression and recruitment in terms of how a student would be impacted by regression and recruitment over summer break. Self-sufficiency is, and I'll just give you a second, like 30 seconds to read that definition on your own. A lot of times self-sufficiency pertains to the IN world, the intensive needs world. And so, like I said before, January is a good time to talk about these 4 definitions because, and I'm specifically bringing this up now because these are the 4 criteria that will qualify SPED students for ESY. So you want your mentee to know these definitions so that they can think about each student and if they might qualify under these 4 pieces of criteria for ESY. For the month of January 12th, it's a good idea to talk with your mentee about this great website, PBIS World. The honeymoon is over. If your mentee has some behavioral issues, has students with some specific behaviors that are not conducive to their classroom, they are blaringly evident at this point in the school year. So this particular website, PBIS World, is a website containing links to hundreds of interventions, supports, there's resources, there's data collections tools, all of which are organized under the tier 1, 2, and 3 framework. So I'm going to drop the link into the chat if you want to explore on your own. And then I'm going to explain a little bit on how this website works. Okay. All right, so there's the PBIS World link. I just dropped it into the chat. If you're watching the recording, it's on your email. So now what you're looking at is the home screen of PBIS. What's fabulous about this website is it has all these different behaviors, and most likely the behavior that you are not liking that's happening in your classroom is going to be here on this list. Let's say that you have a student who's become very disrespectful, let's just say. So if you click into disrespectful, it's going to give you a description of what that disrespect might look like in the classroom. And then you can continue. You could say, yes, this is my student, or no, not my student. But for this case, we're going to say, yes, this is my student. And then there's lots of different interventions that can be tried with that student. You can look, there's a button for all tier 1 interventions, just lots and lots of different strategies to try. There's data tracking forms, all these different forms. And there's even additional, it progresses, to tier 2 interventions, and then tier 3 is up here at the top. So you can toggle between tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 interventions. So I took you through kind of the frameworks of each one of the behaviors that the home screen identifies. So it's very likely that the behavior that your mentee needs interventions for is on this website. So I encourage you to use it yourself and talk with your mentee about it. Okay, now you may or may not know that the end of semester surveys went out in December, and most of the mentors have filled it out already. I think I have like 20 responses. However, I don't have very many mentee responses. So in the week of January 12th, it would be good if you could check in with your mentee to see if they filled out that survey. I really appreciate feedback on how your experience as a mentor is going, as well as I appreciate feedback on how your mentee's experience is going, because at the end of the day, I want to get better. I want to make sure that everything is going well. I want to have suggestions if things can get better, or tweaks in the program. So please do talk with your mentee. If they have not filled out the survey, know that the survey link is on the Foursquare. And then I'm going to drop the mentor survey into the chat. It will be on the email where you found this recording as well. If you have not filled out the mentor survey, please use the link that I dropped in the chat or on the email and give me some feedback on how your mentor experience is going. Okay, now moving into week of January 19th, you may or may not know that after January, as a mentor, you're going to have an opportunity to go and do some classroom visits. In a perfect world, you would have an opportunity to do a classroom visit to your mentee's classroom in January, not January, excuse me. In a perfect world, you would have a classroom visit in February, one classroom visit in March, and then another classroom visit in April. Visiting your mentee's classroom will give you lots of information. It'll provide insight into the strengths of your mentee teacher, as well as maybe some areas where they would benefit from some additional supports. So these classroom visits are a perfect opportunity to do a nice informal visit, just drop into the classroom. So during the week of January 19th, it would be good if you could talk with your mentee about the logistics of visiting during a lesson. For elementary, it would be good to see ELA. For secondary, let the mentee choose a period they want you to see. Put the mentee in the driver's seat. Let them tell you which period they want you to see. I'm asking that you visit a minimum of 1 hour, and there's lots of flexibility. Remember that there is a budget for mentors to be out of their own classrooms. If you're willing to be out of your classroom for a day, you could take that day to visit with your do your classroom visit. You would have some downtime. Maybe you might have some opportunity to debrief with your mentee during their planning time, but there's lots of flexibility. Some teachers maybe want a half day to do the classroom visit. Some teachers prefer being out the entire day. Some teachers prefer to go during their planning period and debrief during one of the mentee meetings. So like I said, there's a lot of flexibility. So you'll want to think about and talk with your mentee on what's going to work best for your partnership. Each partnership looks different, and that classroom visit happens in lots of different ways. So in the month of January, you just want to start talking with them, get them ready for, and be prepared for you to come in to do this classroom visit. What is the visit going to look like? When you do your visit, you're going to be a fly on the wall with little to no interactions with kids. It's super important to not bring attention to yourself. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes the students, the kids, are going to know who you are, and they're going to ask you questions. Why are you in here? Mr. Johnson, I saw you at football practice. They're going to try to interact with you in some way. The problem is as soon as you manage kids or you start talking or helping, you take away the authority from the teacher. It's hard to sit on your hands, but know that it's only an hour so that you can get an idea into the strengths and areas of growth for your mentee. You really just want to be a fly on the wall, minimal to no interactions with kids. Oftentimes when I'm in a classroom and kids, they want to say, "Who are you?" And I always redirect them, and I don't interact with them. I don't answer their questions. I typically will tell them, I'll say to them, what's the direction of your teacher? What are you supposed to be doing right now? I always redirect them to what they're supposed to be doing right now, because as soon as you start talking to them, as soon as you start interacting, it's going to be distracting, not only for your mentee, but it's going to be distracting for the students around because they're going to join in. It's just going to be a big old hot mess. So it's best just to be sitting in there with little to no interactions with kids. So again, know that there is a budget for mentors to be out of their classroom to do these visits. It's super easy. Let's say you do want a full day sub. Let's say you just want to be out of the classroom because you have some other things that you want to work on, and you're going to do your classroom visit, you're going to do your debrief, you just want a day. All you need to do is land on a date with your mentee, of course, and reach out to me. There'll be a sign-in that you'll need to return to me, and your time card will always be logged in as in-service, as if you were attending a professional development. And know that I always give specific instructions on the email to make it as smooth as possible. When you get your sign-in sheet, I'll have the subcode on it for you. It's all streamlined. All you have to do is follow the directions. And again, I can't emphasize enough, it is at your discretion on how you want this classroom visit to have, because no partnership is the same. It looks different for every single mentor-mentee. So talk with your mentee on what's going to work best for them and then move forward. Know that I'm always available for questions. If you have something a little wonky and you want to ask some additional questions, that's fine. So, okay, so what are you going to do when you come in to do this classroom visit? What you're looking at is the lesson look fors, and then I'm going to drop a copy of, I'm dropping a link which will generate a forced copy of the lesson look fors. So I just dropped that into the chat, and it's on the email if you're watching the recording. And this is the form that I like for mentors to use when they do their classroom visits. So you want to be super transparent and share this with your mentee, because it sets an expectation for them and it gives a frame for what you're looking for. The last thing you want to do is come in to do your classroom visit and you're going to be writing things, and then they're confused because they don't know what you're writing. And so you want to be super transparent about these lesson look fors. This is what I'm coming in to look for. And then during the debrief, you're going to share this information with your mentee. Now, when you do these lesson look fors, we're going to talk about these 4 big ticket items, but when you fill these out, I'm not asking that you scribe everything the teacher said. I'm not asking for you to be super detailed. Just short phrases to capture what went on in the lesson. Just short phrases. And I have an example I'll show you on the next slide. But just know that you're not going to be you're not writing in paragraph form. You're just writing simple phrases to identify the lesson. That's it. You're not going to find this in any of the books. Over my years of mentoring and coaching, I've boiled a lesson down to 4 big ticket items. The first big ticket item is the learning target. What does the teacher want students to know or be able to do at the end of the lesson? That should not be a mystery. Everybody should know what the learning target is. The teacher should know, the students should know, you should know as the classroom visit. The learning target should be super transparent. Everybody should know what the teacher wants students to know or be able to do by the end of the lesson. The second big ticket item is engagement. How is the teacher immersing the student into what she wants them to know or be able to do? That engagement piece, there's a lot of flexibility on the engagement. We know that looks different, and there's lots of different engagement strategies. So on the engagement piece, you would just put a short phrase of how is the teacher engaging the students in learning. The third big ticket item is the checks for understanding. How is the teacher getting feedback on what she wants them to know or be able to do? These checks for understanding. How is she checking on their learning? How is, what does that look like? And the last big ticket item is the closure. I always include closure as a big ticket item because the brain remembers first and last best. So closure can simply be reinstating the learning objective or maybe an exit ticket or a reflection. It could be super simplistic or it could be more involved, like a exit ticket or a reflection. But I firmly believe that forgetting to close a lesson is a missed opportunity to reinforce what the teacher wants the students to know or be able to do. It could be simply, today we learned about summarization, and summarization is blah, blah, blah. So oftentimes, forgetting to close that lesson is a missed opportunity. So I always include that closure as a big ticket item. Now, on the bottom of that form is the what went well. You want to fill up the what went well with as many positive things as you can fit in that box. Be your mentee's cheerleader with lots and lots of positive feedback. Looking over to that feedback triangle, remember that when you're giving feedback, positive feedback is you want to do that most often. You want to give positive feedback as often as you can. It has been my experience working with new teachers that new teachers are their worst critic. They will focus in on one thing that they feel didn't go well in the lesson, and they can't get their brain off of that one little thing that didn't go as well as they wanted to. So as the mentor, you get to highlight all the positive things that went on, because new to profession teachers are not thinking about the things that are going well. They're thinking about those one or two things that are sticky wickets. So as the mentor, you get to give them all that positive feedback, be their cheerleader. Now, there is one box on there for questions. I do think it's a good idea to maybe give one piece of learning-based feedback. And if, again, referring back to that feedback triangle, learning-based feedback should be done moderately. So maybe you think of one question that is going to drive the debrief conversation. Maybe you craft one question like, how do you think the lesson went? What are your expectations? Do you think the students met the learning objective? How did you check for understanding? Maybe you have one question that's going to drive the debrief conversation. And then referring back to that feedback triangle, remember that as the mentor, you're going to give tons and tons of positive based feedback. You might give a little bit of learning based feedback. And then at the top of that triangle, concern based feedback, you're not going to do that at all. That's the evaluators. That's a principal's job to provide evaluative judgments to them. That's not your role. Your role is to give them lots of positive based feedback, maybe one thing to think about, crafting into a question, and then you'll leave assigning levels of proficiency to the principal, which would be concern-based feedback. Okay, here's a sample of a lesson look for. You'll notice here that I identified each of the 4 ticket. You'll notice here that I identified each of the 4 big ticket items with a short phrase. The learning target was summarize the main idea. The engagement was questioning, student turn and talk. The checks for understanding were stop and jot, and the teacher was listening in during turn and talks to make sure they were arriving to the conclusions he or she wanted them to. So again, those 4 big ticket items are just a short phrase. Now, what you will notice in the what went well is I have the what went well box completely filled up with as many things as I noticed went well in that lesson. There was a clear objective. There was student participation, wait time, proximity. The teacher was coaching kids. He or she had a good rapport with students, and the teacher was attending to student misbehavior. So you want to fill up that what went well box with as many things as you can. And then there might be 1 or 2 questions to drive the debrief conversation, like, how do you feel the lesson went? Or do you feel like students have a good handle on identifying main idea? So that's what they should look like. For the next couple of months, when you're getting your feet wet with the classroom visits, I'm going to talk more about each of the 4 big ticket items. This month is learning target. Simply put, a learning target is what a teacher wants students to know or be able to do at the end of the lesson. Very often, learning targets are standards, which is fine. Remember that standards are end of the year goals, while learning targets are chunked into lesson size. So my teaching style was to announce to the class what the learning target was at the beginning of the lesson. Know that every teacher has their own style. What's important is that there is clarity. Everybody should know what the learning target, the students should know. The teacher should be very clear on where she's taking kids with that lesson. And then as the classroom visitor, as the mentor visiting the mentee, it should be very transparent to you what the learning target is as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between a learning target and an activity. John Hattie's research finds that teachers who are transparent about what the teacher wants students to specifically learn are going to be more successful. The first days of school calls out that learning is increased as much as 27%. So, I mean, definitely there is research to support that teacher clarity piece. Learning targets are specifically what the mentee wants students to know or be able to do. If the teacher doesn't call out the learning objective at the beginning of the lesson, it should be fairly easy to figure out. If it's not, then you might generate a question that you might want to ask during the debrief of the lesson. John Hattie found that teacher clarity has a 0.75 effect size, which is huge when you consider that anything over 0.4 accelerates learning. So if a strategy is deemed good by having a 0.4 effect size, then having a 0.75 effect size is something that's going to be significant in affecting student learning. So now, if you are an elementary teacher and you're teaching Amplify CKLA, know that there's no expectation that new to profession teachers are coming up with these learning targets on their own, because Amplify CKLA identifies them right in the lesson. So I've found exactly where Amplify identifies those learning targets in the lessons. Now, if you have a teacher that is maybe in the secondary world, or if the SPED teacher, there might be a little bit more to identifying the learning target, but oftentimes in the curricular resources, the learning targets are identified for teachers. They're identified in iReady as well, the learning targets right there. Now, the job of the new to profession teacher is to communicate that learning target that's already been identified by most curricular resources. Their job is to communicate that learning target to students so they know why they're doing what they're doing. So it would be good this week if you could talk with your mentee to ensure that they understand the difference between a learning target and an activity. And here are some examples. When you think about a learning target, a learning target could be summarizing the main point by a speaker. That's the learning target. That's what you want them to be able to do by the end of the lesson. While watching a video, that's an activity. That activity is going to lead them to that summarization piece, but the actual learning target is to summarize, and watching a video is the activity or the engagement piece. The second example is decoding words with Latin syllables. Yeah, that could be a learning target of a lesson, while reading the passage is the activity. So it might be the engagement piece that gets them to decoding words with Latin syllables, but the learning target is decoding words. The third example is the learning target is explain how muscles and bones work together in the body. So if explaining how muscles and bones work together in the body, answering the questions at the end of the chapter is the activity that gets them there. So there's 3 other examples that I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds to review on your own. So again, you want to talk with your mentee just to make sure that they understand the difference between a learning target and an activity. Oftentimes the activity is the engagement piece. Okay, so that was a lot for the week of January 19th. When you get to the week of January 26th, as always, it's the debrief of the reading. So what you're looking at right now is the big ideas for the first days of school. And it really talks a lot about how the teacher has the greatest impact on students. It's not the programs, it's not the curriculum, it's not the technology, or having fewer students in the room. It's not personalized learning, and it's not teaching fads. The most effect that a student is going to receive, the greatest impact on learning is going to be an effective teacher. So that's what those pages really hone in on. Effective teachers trump everything else when you're talking about student learning and achievement. Students with several effective teachers in a row make dramatic achievement gains. Students who have had even 2 ineffective teachers in a row lose significantly. In a reading context, it's called the Matthew effect. The good readers get better, the poor readers get worse. Differences in teacher quality account for 90% of the variation in student achievement. So it's one of the reasons why mentoring is so important in this district, because we want teachers to be effective sooner than later, because that effectiveness trickles down to student achievement. At the end of the day, we want students to be as successful as possible in the classroom, and that research shows is going to result from having effective teachers. So here are the big ideas from the 10 Critical Components book. This is from chapter 5. This was the December reading. I don't know if your teacher, if your mentee did the reading or not. I talked a little bit about these big ideas. Know that these big ideas are on the Foursquare, and you can review them with your mentee. What we're really honing in on today is for the month of January is chapter 6. So what you're looking at are the big ideas from chapter 6, goals, objectives, and lesson plans. Remember that we're moving from classroom management and positive expectations for students. We're moving into instruction. We're going to be talking about instruction for the rest of the school year. So looking at those big ideas, that first bullet point is daily lesson plans are the vehicle by which the IEP is implemented. And it is important that you know what to include in your lesson plans so that each student's objectives are taught. So the IEP goals should be the driver of the lessons that are being taught. And at the end of the day, effective teachers have lesson plans. The second bullet point is all about the importance of using data, recording data, using data to make decisions about what the student lesson should be, what the instructional day and the need of students are should be driven by that data. And the third bullet point is lessons should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Okay, so I'm going to give a little plug for the Mentee books. There is a lot of value in reading the chapters of both the 10 Components book as well as the First Days of School book. But there is a lot of value in reading the chapters of both the 10 Components book as well as the First Days of School book. These books can be used as resources until mentees have a good handle on their practice. It's impossible for a new to profession teacher to have the same experiential knowledge that you might have as a veteran teacher, and it takes time and practice to build that. That's where you come in as a mentor. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where a teacher is in their career, whether they're new to the profession or veteran, like you, as a mentor, all teachers benefit from resources. So there's nothing wrong with bringing the book to your mentor meeting and highlighting passages that you think are really important or you want to talk about. I just want to encourage everyone to put some value on these books, put some value on the time that they're taking to spend to put some value on the reading that they're doing. Because at the end of the day, these are resources that they get to keep in their classroom and refer back to whenever necessary. Okay, so this has been a lot this time. We've had a lot to talk about. Our next Mentor Zoom is February 5th. I'm going to stop talking for a little while and open it up to any questions you might have. I'm actually recording the second session, and that's what's getting pushed out to everyone to review, or for folks who missed the live version. And we had lots of questions in the first session, and it doesn't look like we have any questions in the second session. But just know, if you have any questions about anything I talked about in the Zoom, please do reach out. All right. So we're at the end now, and it's your opportunity to get into your Google Drive. Make sure you have your January Foursquares. There should be 3 Foursquares in there and a lesson look for document as well. Also, there's the January checklist. I'm dropping the January checklist into the chat. It's also on the email that you found the recording. And there's not a whole lot to put on teachers' radars for January. However, please do check it out whenever you have a chance. Okay, so that is it for our January session. Again, make sure you have your January Foursquares. There's also a lesson look for in there for you. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about in the video, please do reach out. And if I don't hear or talk to you, have a great January, and I hope you feel like you're in good shape to move forward. Good night, everyone.